When you think of Toyota Racing Development's off-road series of trucks and SUVs, what usually comes to mind? If you're like me, it's vehicles that are usually pretty inefficient, they're big and bulky, but they are built tough and ready for absolutely anything. But nowadays, Toyota seems to think that that same sort of off-road prowess and philosophy belongs in a much smaller package. What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another car review here on the driveway, where this week we are out and about in the 2022 Toyota RAV4. I know, doesn't sound very interesting, does it? Because we already have looked at this new generation RAV4 on the channel already, but that was a good few years ago with something I would like to say is a little more civilized, which the one we have here is anything but, because this is the Toyota Racing Development Off-Road Edition. Basically, I like to think of it as a Toyota 4Runner on a little bit more of a budget, but not much more, because as you see it right now, it's $40,500 with the options included on my test car. So still expensive, but considering in today's market 4Runners are trading between 50 and 60 grand, well, it sort of begs the question, do you buy a 4Runner and get a larger vehicle with a bigger engine, worse gas mileage, etc., or do you settle for something smaller? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. And the first thing I want to do is drive it and see if it feels like a big off-road brute in a concrete jungle, or whether it's still a little more of a civilized being. So it's kind of amazing to think that this 5th generation RAV4 has now been with us since 2019, and it's now 2022 and we're bordering on 2023. And over the years, I've kind of just thought of the RAV4, regardless of generation, as just, I don't know, nothing really special. It never really turned my head, and even though I've had one at some point in my life, even this new generation just doesn't quite get my emotions going. But then when I heard Toyota was putting some of their off-road goodies on their smaller crossover, it definitely got my wheels turning. So now that I've got this thing in my hands for a week, let's see just how off-roady it can really be. And as you guys know me, there are really no off-road areas here in downtown Houston, Texas. So if you do decide to do something like that, well, Toyota seems to think that the RAV4 is just as capable as its bigger brother, because they've put things like a torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, which can determine which wheel needs the most power at any given time, but also it includes a 4-way multi-terrain select system. So you have things like rock and gravel, mud and sand, snow, and just the normal mode. And normal, I mean, that's included in the normal trio of drive modes, being eco, normal, and sport, which this car also has. Now, bolted to that all-wheel drive system and an 8-speed automatic transmission, which thank God this thing doesn't have a CVT. I would literally rip my hair out, what's left of it, if this thing had a CVT, because the motor in here is a little bit on the noisy side. Not only that, combined with the road noise in this car, well, the cabin may be quiet, but you can definitely hear what's going on the outside too. Speaking of that engine, it's the same thing as before. 203 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque from a 2.5-liter dual-injected dynamic force 4-cylinder. Again, not much has changed. It's really all just what's underneath. And if you're looking for fuel economy, which you would if you're looking at a normal RAV4, this is the least efficient out of all of them, scoring 25 in the city and 32 on the highway, and that's even lower than a limited all-wheel drive, which comes in at 25 city and 33 on the highway. But you know, speaking of being like a daily driver, not only do I have all the comforts of a normal RAV4 that I would want, like heated ventilated front seats thanks to the off-road technology package. I've got a wireless charger in here. I've got all of Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 in here, from dynamic all-speed radar cruise control, forward collision warning, blind spot monitoring. I mean, you name it, I have it. So it is still a RAV4 at heart. For me personally, I don't quite understand why people would drive cars that are more off-road focused more on-road. But then again, you have to use the highways and side streets to get to the off-road, so I kind of get it. But anyways, I mean, you have 18-inch wheels on this thing with these big knobbly tires. You got a TRD off-road tuned suspension. And like I said, the road noise in here, it's pretty noticeable. And combined with the buzz of the engine, well, that's not that great either. Ride quality, I would say it's a question mark, because it can be very compliant, and at slower speeds it can be pretty quiet in here, but hitting like the bumps and everything, you feel everything in here. But you know, once you get off the highway and you start slowing down a little bit and you kind of just start to take in how the RAV4 feels as a whole, well, the off-road version, yeah, even right now as I'm driving around on slightly rougher roads, I mean, I wouldn't mistake this for really any other RAV4 on the road. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit firmer with that off-road suspension that I mentioned before, but things like the steering, I mean, it's light, but at the same time, it provides a decent bit of feedback. And, you know, normally I wouldn't do it, but let's push the sport button. Let's see what happens. I mean, that's kind of useless. I don't really see any point of me going into sport mode in a 3,600-pound small crossover. But I mean, you know, taking the kids to school, going to soccer practice, picking up the food for dinner, I mean, stuff like that, that's exactly what the RAV4 was built for. But you know, here's the truth. I mean, I love the RAV4 as an overall vehicle. It gets you where you need to go. Depending on what model you get, pretty much all of them will get over 30 miles to the gallon. Like right now, my dash is showing 30 miles per gallon, dead even. I mean, overall, it's a great vehicle to drive. If you're looking for not the smallest crossover, but definitely not the biggest one in the family either, the RAV4, I can absolutely understand why it's been the success that it has through its 5 generations. But you know, making it an off-road version, that's where the question mark still hangs in my head. And especially when you consider, again, $40,500, and this one doesn't even have all the options in it. It has some, but it does get pricier than this. So the question becomes, I mean, would you pick this and try to look like you're ready to go into the rugged wilderness, or would you just pick one of the normal ones? Well, for me, like I said, I'm kind of undecided on that, but I'll tell you what swayed me a little bit more, especially when I saw this thing for the first time, is the fact that Toyota has actually done something about the way it looks. From a visual standpoint, the TRD Off-Road is a very interesting looking beast, and there are 2 things about this particular test car that stick out to me right away. First of which is the color. We have cavalry blue paired with an ice edge roof. Now you can get this thing with a black roof, which honestly I think that would look a lot better considering the other black accents that we have on the outside here. But looking at it from the face, this thing has sort of a baby 4Runner appearance. I know I keep making comparisons to it, but I really mean it. I mean, look at these headlights, for example. They're fully blacked out. You got LED daytime running lights, LED high and low beams with auto high beam assist, but the turn signals are still incandescent, which that's a little bit of a letdown. Also, we have LED fog lights mounted in a very unique front bumper here. Normally the grille extends down a little bit further, but this grille almost looks like it was taken off of something like a Tacoma. It's matte black, or just at least black plastic. Again, a little bit more on the off-roady aggressive side. You can see the sensors here lining the front and rear halves of the vehicle for that optional park assist. And we also have a nice little bit of metallic black on this lower chin here, and even if you were to look underneath, there is actually a TRD skid plate mounted under the nose. Now, although the RAV4 is already a sizable vehicle, the off-road actually makes things even bigger. A standard RAV4 is 180.9 inches long. However, for the adventure and off-road grades, that increases by a half a foot, 181.5 inches from nose to tail, and I'm mainly assuming that's due to the exterior body cladding that's specific to those trims. However, what's rather interesting is that even though this is an off-road edition, it doesn't have any more ground clearance than something like an XLE Premium or even the limited trim, which I would have figured Toyota would have raised this thing a little bit higher in the air, but nevertheless, it does still have at least a decent amount of ground clearance. And talking about ground, look at the wheels in this thing. We got these matte black 18-inch TRD wheels mounted on 225 60 series Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires. And guys, I'm gonna tell you, these things look properly meaty out here. And even if you look up in the fender well, aside from the dirt from our little off-road escapade today, you can see a little bit of the remnants of that TRD tuned suspension. And look at the coil springs on that thing. And at an as-tested price over $40,000, the RAV4 still has quite a bit to say for itself. I mean, all the safety features are in place and some pretty nice aesthetic things as well. As I mentioned before, we have the blacked out mirrors on this one, which is why I would rather have the black roof on this one, not that ice edge pearl. But you can see they got the turn signals on the outside. You've got blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. Again, some are part of the options list, but some things are standard as well. Also on this one, it comes standard with a regular size power tilting and sliding sunroof. We've got these huge roof rails up here, so a nice place to put, say, a ski box or something if you're going out into the wilderness. And it also comes standard with Toyota's advanced keyless access, which we've all seen this key fob before. It says RAV4 on the back. You have lock, unlock, the power tailgate in this case, and panic, along with the releasable key blade that comes out of the bottom. And it works like every other one. You just have the key fob on you, you grab the door, you can hear that unlocks it, and then there's a little rib on the front, and you just lay your finger to it to lock it. But aside from all the off-road goodies, the back half of this RAV4 looks like any other one in the family. If it wasn't for the two-tone roof and the wheels, I would think that this is just some RAV4 that somebody has gussied up just a little bit in their own way. But you look at the taillights here, you've got LED main bulbs, LED reversing lights. You do have incandescent turn signals, just like the front, which again, it's a little bit of a letdown for me. You've got blacked out badges with the TRD badge here. Same thing with the RAV4 badge on the other side. Again, we have a power tailgate on this one, but no hands-free assist, which is a bit of a letdown here. But also you can see down low, we have the rear sensors as part of that optional park assist. And as you can see at the bottom, it does have a very nice chrome tipped dual exhaust, but it doesn't really sound like anything special. But of course, this is still a crossover of some variety. So of course, what do people expect? Capability. So when you open the power tailgate here, either via the key or by the latch into the trunk, you open up to a pretty decently sized space back here. Behind the second row of seats, you're looking at 37.5 cubic feet of cargo volume. You can see this one here has the TRD Off-Road cargo mat installed, and underneath the floor, we actually have a temporary spare tire and first aid kit. But if you were to remove this little partition here and fold down that 60-40 split fold seat, that increases to 69.8 cubic feet of cargo volume. So still, even though it's not the biggest, it is still plenty capable. And although the outside of this RAV4 may look all rough and ready, when it comes to the inside, Toyota didn't want you to think that this thing is all bark and no bite. You look inside and the interior is pretty much exactly the same as you would find on any other RAV4, albeit there are a few differences. You have like the TRD embroidery on the headrest, you have the red stitching on these black leather-bound seats. The front seats are heated and ventilated as part of the off-road weather package in this case, and also as a part of that group, you get a heated leather-trimmed steering wheel. Now, the steering wheel itself, it's exactly the same that we've seen in all the other RAV4s, so again, nothing too seriously special there. You do have a manual tilt and telescoping steering column and a few little ubiquitous buttons down here, including your power tailgate, the function for the heated steering wheel. The weather package also includes a windshield de-icing system with heated windshield washer fluid, and you also have the auto high beam assist. From the driver's seat, the RAV4 still feels like a very comfortable place to be. With the steering wheel and seat adjusted to my liking, I'm over 6 feet tall and I have plentiful amounts of room to move around any way I want up here in the driver's seat, and everything I could possibly need is all right at the touch of my fingertips. Now, even though we have the off-road technology package on board this test car today, this infotainment system here is not the best that it could be. Let me explain. First of all, it's a 9-inch screen, so a pretty decent size, but This can be upgraded with the Off-Road Advanced Technology package, which includes things like dynamic navigation and the upgraded 11-speaker JBL audio system. That was something I was really hoping to see, but then again, with the complaints I've had with Toyota's nav system in the past, I can sort of forget all of that. The basic 9-inch system that we have here includes Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. You also have Toyota's remote connected services on board, and it is like every single other Toyota system that I've ever looked at. If you go into the menu here, you have audio, phone, app suite, you have Android Auto in this case, so I can turn that on, and of course you have the general information and setup as well. The Android Auto system is also very nice because even though this particular car does not have the dynamic navigation, it still has the button labeled map. Now, if you don't have Android Auto connected, if you push map, you'll just get a message saying you don't have navigation on board. But if you have Android Auto running, you can push the map button and it will automatically take you to Google Maps. And once you've got Android Auto running, most of the tabs that you see here on the outside of the infotainment screen all can control things within the Android Auto system itself, unless it is not running, which then you will have access to things like the AM, FM, XM radio stations when you push audio. Of course, Seek Track, that's self-explanatory. Bluetooth telephone, that's also explanatory. When you push apps, this lower one here on the right, that will take you to Toyota's remote connected services. Now, if we put this 8-speed transmission in reverse, not only can you hear the doors automatically lock themselves, but we have a standard size backup camera as well, which it is a little bit adjustable. You can have a little bit more of a widescreen view. I prefer the standard size one, and you can also adjust the type of guidance lines that you have. Like this one's here is a little more Lexus-y in my opinion. You also have just the single red line, which measures about a foot out from the back of the vehicle, but I also just prefer the standard guidance lines. And again, that also comes included, or at least optionally, with the advanced park assist front and rear. Now, as much as I love playing around with things like Android Auto and whatnot, the thing I always look forward to with any car is testing how good the audio system is. Now, yes, I'm a music head. I absolutely love my tunes while I'm driving, but this one, well, it's decent. You got a 6-speaker standard audio system, again, unless you upgrade to the advanced technology group, which then means you get 11 speakers powered by JBL. So let's take a listen to this one and see how good it is. But you know, aside from the technology, all the other ancillaries inside of this RAV4 are exactly like any other member in the family when equipped properly. I mean, the climate control system, it's dual zone. You got the big chunky knobs on the outside for your temperatures. But one thing that's been kind of bugging me is this red plastic trim. Now, that's only because my OCD has been going crazy and the outside of this car is blue and white. But either way, you can see the red trim surrounding the optional wireless charger that I mentioned earlier. You can see I have my USB plugged in with for my phone. For Android Auto, so it is not wireless in this, and nor is Apple CarPlay either. You've got this giant chunky shifter here in the middle, which is placed a little bit farther away than most other vehicles I've been in. Normally it would be kind of reversed. You'd have your drive modes and everything over here where the shifter is, and the shifter over here. You get the idea. Anyways, in the center, 2 decently sized cup holders. I got a pretty big bottle of water in there, which fits just fine. And then here in the middle, I have a decent little storage area for some odds and ends. And inside, you have 2 USB-C ports. So they have done away with the regular USBs. If you want that, the only one you got is right up here in the front. But of course, one of the big selling points of any crossover of any size is the fact that you usually are able to fit at least 5 people comfortably. Now keep that final word in mind, because when you open the door, you have a pretty good size entrance space to which you can see we have seat belts, or at least seating for 3 people across the second row. The first thing of note is that these back seats do not recline. If you want that, I know there are a couple of other vehicles in this same category that offer reclining rear seats. Again, these seats are 60-40 split, so you have the triggers up here on the upper armrests. But my biggest gripe, and it really is only small, is the fact that when I get inside, I feel like the bottom of these seats, at least where the part where your butt sits on, they are a little too firm for me. Down here in the bottom, you have 2 USB-C charging ports. You can see we've got that rear all-weather mat, of course, duplicated from up in the front. And you do have cup holders here in the middle as well, which a large bottle of water, like this one, just barely fits in there. So larger drinks are not the best for backseat passengers, but really, again, it's a pretty decent place to spend your time. You can close the door and you have a pretty decent amount of leg room back here. I mean, I say decent because I'm over 6 feet tall, and I know not everybody's as tall as I am. So of course, I mean, you can fit at least my hand between my knee and the leather bound back of the driver's seat, which, speaking of, you also have a leather bound map pocket here in the back. So again, not a bad place to spend your time. I just wish the bottom of these seats was a little bit more plush. And unfortunately, guys, this now wraps up my review and drive of the 2022 Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road. You know, it really makes you think when you see something as small as this having a little bit more of that aggressive off-roady nature, that it starts to make a little more sense to have something like this, especially in today's times, when something like a 4Runner or a Tundra or a Tacoma is definitely a lot more inefficient and also a lot bigger. So if you don't need all that, this is definitely something to pay attention to. But as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's review. Big thanks to Toyota USA, i.e. Gulf States Toyota, for lending us one of their cars. But if you want to see more of my stuff, check out my social media links in the description box below. And also, while you're at it, give this video a thumbs up, and also be sure to subscribe for plenty more videos like this, and also my new series of YouTube shorts coming very soon. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. I will see y'all next time. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.